Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. You've most likely heard that Tesla have submitted an application for planned expansion in Berlin from 500,000 vehicles to 1 million vehicles, and supposedly able to achieve this without any increase in water consumption, which has in the past been brought up as a limiting factor for Tesla's expansion in Germany. We've also seen Tesla clearing land for presumed future expansions at the Berlin site too. Now, 500,000 additional vehicles is a considerable increase, so it's highly possible a new factory is on the way on that site. What the factory will produce is the big question. Given that the current factory is producing Model Y and there are also ample China Model Y exports, we can likely rule out a Model Y extension. Is it possible a Model 3 factory for Europe, perhaps with new manufacturing techniques to get costs lower? I wouldn't have thought so. 500,000 Model 3s is a large amount of supply. As popular as the Model 3 is, it doesn't have the same levels of demand that we see for the Model Y. Could it be a semi-truck factory? Well, not if it's making 500,000 units a year. We expect Giga Nevada to be around 50,000 units a year when that's up and running and ramped. In addition to this, I don't think Tesla are going to rely on any vehicles that use 4680 cells. In fact, any vehicles that use high energy dense nickel batteries at all. In other words, I think it very likely that whatever is produced here will be using LFP cells. Now, BYD have been supplying Tesla with some of their LFP blade batteries, but I don't think they have enough supply for a whole new factory for Tesla. I think it far more likely that Tesla use CATL, as they are their largest supplier anyway. On top of that, CATL will soon have a new battery plant in Hungary, which is a lot closer to ship to Germany from China, and Hungary is also part of the EU, so will not face import tariffs. CATL may even be producing their more energy-dense M3P cells at this factory, a cell that really does make a difference when it comes to low-cost cells. Hopefully CATL will tell us more about their plans with the latest factories sometime soon. If Tesla have a capacity of 500,000 vehicles at this new site in Berlin, then they'd only require probably a maximum of 30 gigawatt hours a year of cells, and this new CATL factory has a capacity of 100 gigawatt hours. They'll be supplying the likes of BMW and others too, although one might think that Tesla is going to be the largest customer. So if they're using LFP cells, and it's not a Model 3, Y, S, X, Roadster, and likely neither a Cybertruck, what does that leave? Well, the two new vehicles we saw covered up at Investor Day, a van and a compact. For Mexico, most of the Tesla community seem to think that the van is what will be produced first there, and there are quite a few good reasons for that. One, it will not cannibalize the Model 3. Also, compact vehicles are not as popular in the US compared to other markets. And of course, a van is larger and thus going to cost more, meaning there'll be more profit per van sale than compact. So there's plenty of reasons for people to assume a van is what might be produced first in Mexico. But at this stage, it's really anyone's guess. In fact, the other half of the community thinks it might be a compact, but for the South American market. Personally, I don't think this will be the case. As for Europe though, I'd actually guess it likely would be the compact car they produce there. Compacts are a lot more popular in Europe. Europe doesn't have the $7,500 tax credit like the US either, and Tesla needs to do what it can to offer some lower cost options in order to increase demand. I mean, Tesla could also launch the van in Europe too, but with 500,000 units a year, that could be a bit high, whereas 500,000 compacts a year shouldn't be a stretch at all. Also, Volkswagen have of course recently unveiled their new electric compact too, although it won't arrive until 2025. They've also set the price point at €25,000, but it's still at least 2 years away. If Tesla start building in Germany soon, then they could very well beat Volkswagen to market for electric compact. Tesla likely wouldn't have to go that low on price though, as Tesla is a more premium brand than Volkswagen, and you certainly get a lot more extras with a Tesla than you do an ID3 or ID4, let alone an ID2. Of course, Volkswagen may not be making any profit on their ID2, and they may only make around 100,000 a year. But they have somewhat set a benchmark for an EV compact in Europe. It will have about 200 miles of range EPA, which if Tesla was to achieve, will probably only take about 40 kilowatt hour battery. Well, Tesla would likely beat that. Tesla may offer a standard and long range version, but I would say 250 miles is probably suitable for the European market. 200 miles is likely even sufficient, but Tesla would more than likely want to beat Volkswagen on range. It's been a long wait since we saw any new products released from Tesla, so hopefully we finally get the reveal later this year. With a battery that small and the new Gen 3 unboxed parallel manufacturing techniques, then Tesla truly could get their cost down to half of the Model 3, perhaps around $18,000. Then selling it for under $30,000, there's likely a $10,000 profit per vehicle. And that's without any add-ons. $10,000 is the number I would like Tesla to hit for most of their vehicles on average, and hope that's about where they are with the 4680 Model Ys too. I think the made in China versions are going to be lower than that, but with the tax credit in the US, they'll be able to pull up the average to probably around $10,000. And we've been told over 20% gross margins with over $47,000 ASP. And that's without the Cybertruck, the 4680 Model Y ramp, or the semi-truck. So with 3 million vehicle sales a year, that becomes $30 billion gross profit, which is a solid income for the current valuation. And that's excluding any of the future tech we hope from the company. Oh, and the energy division too. But talking about China, we're seeing some of the latest videos in Shanghai that there appears to be more land being cleared. So we also hope to expect that they're building a new factory there too. Finally, this has been discussed for quite some time. I believe the latest we'd heard was Tesla were having issues with the government approval, maybe some anti-competitive behaviour to support the domestic electric vehicle market, but perhaps this has been sorted and it does still benefit the Chinese economy due to the battery production. Now, as we know, legacy autos have to have a joint venture with Chinese company in order to operate in China, and Tesla was the first company that managed to own 100% of their China operations. However, they do kind of have a joint venture with CATL and have to use their cells. And as I keep mentioning, CATL have almost completed their new massive factory in Shanghai, which should have a capacity of around 100 gigawatt hours a year. I don't mean to sound too speculative here, but there is a chance that we have 3 new factories for Tesla. Mexico, that will likely break ground next quarter, then Berlin, and potentially Shanghai perhaps later in the year. You might think that is too overwhelming for Tesla to build 3 factories at once, but remember they were also building 2 factories simultaneously, Berlin and Texas, which are likely much larger factories, as they were not using the new Gen 3 manufacturing process, and Texas actually has 2 production lines. And yes, there's also the semi-truck factory that might start sometime this year too. So there's potentially a lot of expansion to come for Tesla, along with the likelihood of 1 or 2 additional models to the range currently on offer. This is going to be what the market wants to see, and assuming macros hold, then this should really make the stock price move. If we're on about a run rate of 2 million vehicles a year now, then these new factories would make a big difference. For reference, Mexico is meant to be 1 million vehicles, Berlin 500,000, and they've been saying a total of 2 million in Shanghai, so potentially an additional million including the current production. Well, that's an additional 2.5 million vehicles a year in production. However, it's also leaving a discrepancy of over 600,000 from Berlin and Texas Model Y factories that can still ramp to capacity. Oh, and the Cybertruck. So maybe almost another million vehicles there. In other words, 3.5 million on top of the current 2 million, taking it to 5.5 million. And it sounds like they're aiming to build factories a lot faster these days, with a target of 9 months in Mexico. Of course, Berlin will have lots of red tape there and likely not be complete quite that fast. But if Shanghai gets the green light, it could be in production within a year. Anyway, if Tesla are going back to building multiple factories again, then perhaps by the end of the year, it's actually possible to see a run rate of 5 million or so. However, in all honesty, as an investor, if they're only still at 3 million, it's still looking pretty good. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.